Welcome, folks, to Good Morning Cannabis. And I have my friend Arun. Arun, say your last name so I don't butcher it. Is it Kurichety?
Kurichety.
Kurichety. I'm
Yes.
never going to forget that name. And Arun is actually, he's got a pretty interesting background, but currently he's the COO of Petalfast. But Arun, why don't you share with the folks listening in a little bit about your background, a little bit about Petalfast, and then we'll get right into the topic, which I think you'll be able to help many people in the discussion.
Sure. Appreciate being here. Thanks for having me on. As you mentioned, my name is Arun Kurichety. I'm a corporate attorney by background, so I've been practicing law for about 15 years now. I started out as a corporate restructuring lawyer, working for one of the leading restructuring firms, Kirkland & Ellis in Chicago.
Yep.
I mentioned that because that's really where I kind of cut my teeth and understood how businesses are put together, how they fall apart, and kind of how they get put back together again. After that experience, like a lot of white shoe law firm lawyers, kind of got burnt out and was really looking at kind of the landscape at that time. And what was interesting to me was cannabis. I had always had an affinity towards cannabis, had been living in California right around the time that Proposition 64 was gaining some steam, and started really attending different advocacy group events, different trade organizations here in California, and really was just fascinated by this nascent industry. I had always saw the, kind of the benefits of the plant, and I'd also seen some of the injustices that had happened towards, from the social, folks being targeted for what we thought was, a plant that could help people. And so kind of taking all of those things together, jumped headfirst in the industry, started counseling and helping a lot of folks come out of the illicit gray market, the kind of Prop 215 days in California, into the Proposition 64 and licensed market. And a lot of that work was, setting things up the right way from a corporate governance, corporate formation standpoint, documenting a lot of the different, agreements and contracts. As you can imagine, folks operating in the gray industry or the illicit market, they didn't have anything written down. That would almost, get you, in trouble with the authorities. So taking a lot of that stuff and just formalizing it, and like I mentioned to a lot of people, just bringing more professionalism to the space. And from that, kind of experience, I was a company reached out to me by the name of Kushco Holdings.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of the larger ancillary providers. Kushco actually merged into a company called Green Lane. What they did was, like I said, on the ancillary space, so packaging, vape hardware, solvents that are used in the extraction process. So, that experience was very interesting. Was a public company, learned a lot about kind of public company type, legal and business type issues. But more importantly, it really expanded my horizons in terms of the network of folks that we were talking to. We were working with, people all along the supply chain, from suppliers, throughout the country and the world, to brands, in California, Florida, Michigan, you name it. And so I really started to understand, along with my current, partners, just some of the challenges that we're facing the cannabis industry, specifically around kind of branded products and distribution. Mm-hmm. If you look at any other industry like wine and spirits or food and beverage, there's typically more of a traditional route to market strategy where third parties typically help brands get their products into retail channels. So, we're not kind of reinventing the wheel here, but we're borrowing a lot of best practices from some of these other industries to, like I said, help cannabis brands sell into and out of retail channels.
Awesome. So, let's kind of get into some questions that you might be able to help me understand and the audience. A lot of folks are in a startup mode on the East Coast, because I'm in the East Coast. You have been on the West Coast. I don't know where you physically sit today. Are you on the West Coast as well?
I'm in the West Coast right now,
okay.
Yeah, in California.
So if you were to advise the folks who are starting up, some of which are already started, how to set things up right. Now, you've seen some failures in the market. You've seen some bankruptcies. Is there 2 or 3 things that they can do to prepare beforehand so that they don't end up spending all this money and then end up going bankrupt? What are those best practices that you would be able to advise on?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it earlier, but through my law firm, Kurichety Law,
Yep.
we advise a lot of different startups. I mentioned my previous experiences in kind of the big law were, these behemoth billion-dollar companies, but I really thought that smaller companies needed kind of a more personal touch, and that's kind of why, decided to hang, my own shingle to help
Right.
those folks out. But the biggest thing I think is just making sure that, all of the kind of traditional corporate governance and structures are set up kind of day one. So what that means is, making sure that you're forming your company or LLC in the right jurisdiction. If you're operating in California, then maybe you shouldn't have a Missouri company, as your state of, incorporation.
Right.
So just the kind of those types of things, which, I'd always advise people to get outside counsel to help them, to advise them through that process. So once you have the kind of corporate structure set up, there's going to be a lot of different things. Are you raising money from outside investors? Are you going to be self-funding the venture? Depending on the answers to those questions, then, we would want to structure the entity in the right way. Maybe that means creating certain subsidiaries where, one subsidiary works on one line of the business and other subsidiaries work on the other line of the business. That's become specific, very important, especially if you are having plant touching activities or non-plant touching activities. So I think just understanding kind of at the outset what your business and what your goals and vision are can help drive kind of what the corporate structure and the corporate governance, and then the ways that you can, bring money into fund, the operations of the company. I think also, was, in the past, and understandably so, a lot of different just handshake deals
Right.
that were done by different parties. I can't tell you how many, times that just turns into horror stories down the road. You might be friendly with the party today, but if things aren't documented, and usually when there's money at stake, that usually can lead to issues between the parties. And I think the more work that you can get done upfront, kind of a roadmap as to what happens when things are good, and a roadmap as to happen, when things are bad. You can't change whether those things happen or don't happen, but at least you can be prepared to deal with those issues as they come up. And so I think that just takes the shape of, having, like I said, good contracts in place, making sure that you are picking appropriate venues for when conflicts do arise, governing laws, things like that. Again, that with the whole eye of just having everyone's eyes open as to what, the situation is, to hopefully avoid risk and problems down the road.
So tell me, let's talk a little bit about Petalfast. How did it come up with the name Petalfast? I always like to ask that question. Do you know? I mean,
we actually had been kicking around a number of different names, and we settled on Petalfast. Obviously, the petal with the T kind of has an allusion to the flower, and we are moving fast. Our goal is to help brands accelerate their growth. And so we felt like kind of, putting those two together was very appropriate for what our business model is, which, just briefly, what do we do? We're a go-to-market agency. So that is composed of three kind of different divisions. One is sales, one is trade marketing, and one is brand management.
Awesome.
So again, like we're borrowing concepts from traditional CPG and wine and spirits. If you look at the way that we run our business, it's pretty much like a CPG distributor. So think about if you wanted to get, the new granola bar into Whole Foods,
right?
You wouldn't just walk down the street and try to get your product in. You would typically work with like a national broker that would help with the relationship with the retailer. So, Arun's granola bar company would go talk to the national broker. They would then help you get into the Whole Foods and then manage that relationship. And then there would be a third party typically that does like the logistics to get, Arun's granola bar from the warehouse to the retailer. And those two entities are kind of working hand in hand to provide full service distribution. In the wine and spirit space, that's typically on, one company is doing both the logistics and the distribution as well as the sales and marketing. So if you look at companies like Breakthrough Beverage, RNDC, Southern Glazer, who are some of the larger wine and spirits distributors, a lot of the ways that we manage our sales team, manage our portfolio come from, those traditional kind of wine and spirits concepts. And what we do then is our sales team, right now we are in California, Massachusetts, Arizona, and about to launch in Michigan. Our sales team works with the brand to basically help, get your products into all of the legal dispensaries in whatever jurisdiction that we're operating in. We pair that with a trade and marketing group that then does a lot of different activations in store, demonstrations, PADs, bud tender, activations, to help basically drive sales in the retail environment. So if you think about it, the sales team is doing the sell into the store, and then the field and trade team is doing, more on the sell out. Those two divisions are managed by our brand management team. These folks are typically the most kind of sophisticated, experienced people on our team, typically come from 5 years plus of cannabis experience, paired with typically 5 to 10 plus years of either CPG or wine and spirits experience. And those people are really the quarterback for the brand. So they're working hand in hand with the brand to set sales strategies. And, we track against those strategies using a lot of different proprietary technology that we've built over our last 2 years. And so the whole goal is to kind of take a lot of that function away from the cannabis brand and let them focus on what they do best.
Right.
Which is typically, the cultivation or the manufacturing or the co-packing or the branding, and let us kind of handle some more of the, the tackling and the blocking and tackling, so that, again, the brands can focus on what they do best. I know there's been a lot of talk about kind of vertical integration, and I'm curious to see how that plays out in the East Coast. I think if you look at history and you look at kind of more traditional industries, at some point, if you're trying to achieve scale, that is going to break down over time. So, our bet is that will happen in the cannabis industry as people become more specialized and more experienced in their lane. Hopefully we can do the same in our lane and pair the things together and, have success for everybody.
I love it. So how could folks get in touch with you? How can they connect with Petalfast? Give us some, and this will also be in the notes for the people who are listening, but perhaps you can just kind of cite some.
Sure. There's a number of different ways. I mean, the easiest way, and a lot of folks, we have a lot of inbound inquiries for our website. That's www.petalfast.com. You can go on there, check out our suite of services, and there will be links to email. Typically when folks email, we'll get back to you in the next 24, 48 hours to set up an intro call where we can go and dive deeper into kind of our services. You can email me, Arun, ARUN, @petalfast.com, or any one of our team members. We are also kind of active on, the event circuit. So I will be in MJ BizCon next week, and we do attend a number of different conferences throughout the country. Again, working and looking for brands that are ready to scale and ready to, continue to grow.
Well, I will definitely see you in Vegas next week. I don't know when this will be posted, but I'll have seen you probably when it's posted. But I also just love the painting behind you. Is that something that you did, or is that?
No, I actually live down in Laguna Beach, California. And my first day that I was there, I walked past an art gallery. I had just moved from LA to Laguna Beach, and somewhat coincidentally, this painting is called Walking in LA.
There you go.
So I picked it just because that was my first day.
A great background. And Arun, I really appreciate you being on the podcast, and we will continue, to talk into the future, because I see it. You folks play a very important role in this industry becoming a mature industry, not just on the West Coast, but East Coast, and hopefully globally one day. That's my passion.
You mentioned that today is election day, so fingers crossed that we get some additional reform in those states where cannabis is on the ballot, and hopefully we see some future reform from the federal level as well.
I absolutely am with you on that, and it'll be fun because when we listen to this, it'll have already passed. So, so right now we're in suspense, but we'll know the answer the next time we actually broadcast this. But again, have a great day, and we'll be chatting real soon.
All right. Thanks for the time.
Take care. Bye.